injury. Kasper Asgreen wins once again. And EF Education First take win number 2 at the Giro d'Italia. That was nothing short of sensational by Asgreen, the motor behind the breakaway. He wins, and he wins by a handsome margin over the chase that was powerless to do anything.
Stage 15, the second longest stage of the entire 108th Giro d'Italia. 219 mountainous kilometres, starting at Fiume Veneto and heading up to a finish in the town of Asiago. A real test, a 4-star stage, and a day when the GC race would surely ignite. A day for the climbers and a day for UAE Team Emirates Juan Ayuso and the race leader Isaac Del Toro to consolidate their advantage, and for Primož Roglic perhaps to make up some of the time lost on a couple of unfortunate days of racing for him. A test then of the Maglia Rosa's credentials, the young Mexican leading the race so far immaculately and not putting a foot wrong. A big day for a breakaway potentially as well, and as the flag dropped at kilometre 0, the attacks started, and they did not relent for kilometre after kilometre. All the way in fact to the first intermediate sprint, where Mads Pedersen just about held off the challenge of Jensen Plowright to pick up another 12 points in the Maglia Ciclamino. Olaf Koy picking up 5 for third place. Then a 4-man breakaway went of Patrick Conrad, Lorenzo Milesi, Mattia Bais and Michael Hepburn. As they hit the steep slopes of the Moro di Cal del Poggio, it was Nicola Conci who went over at the top in first place for Astana, but behind him the race had fractured. There were groups all over the place, and it was Antonio Tirberi who was on the back foot, having to be piloted by his teammates back to the front. Marco Frigo then went through the second and final intermediate sprint of the day in first place as they hit the lower slopes of Monte Grappa. A big breakaway group had formed at the peloton, keeping them tight because the Colombian climber Aina Rubio was in the breakaway and a threat in the general classification. UAE Team Emirates in control of the peloton. Movistar driving on the group at the front of the race with Lorenzo Fortunato, the king of the mountains. And it was then that Georg Steinhauser and Lorenzo Fortunato went clear as Ineos Grenadiers took up the pace for Egan Bernal further behind in the group of favourites at 3 minutes further down the mountain.
Oh, here we go, Bernal's big move while we were looking at that image, takes the Maglia Rosa with him. Richard Carapaz then instantly trying to get across to the front of the race.
In the fog then, at the top of the Monte Grappa climb, it was Lorenzo Fortunato who went over the top in first place and took 40 points. And meanwhile, Marco Frigo swept past Fortunato to hit the long descent in first place on home roads. The Maglia Rosa group then, trying to exert their advantage over Primož Roglic, who got caught out and was off the back in a group trying to get back on. The groups came together a little bit on the descent, and a fresh breakaway was formed featuring Carlos Verona, who hadn't been in the first breakaway, as they headed to the second climb of the day, the Category 2 ascent of Dori. Carlos Verona then did not hesitate to attack a long way out, 15.6 kilometres in fact from the top of the climb. But Carlos Verona was marauding off the front, holding a 30-second lead through the Red Bull kilometre ahead of Filippo Zana and Garofoli from Soudal Quickstep. It was then Richard Carapaz who attacked Isaac Del Toro. Del Toro straight onto the wheel of Carapaz, taking a little group off the front with Egan Bernal once again and Roglic struggling and losing time. Over the top of the last categorised climb, it was Verona in the front of the race, Simon Yates attacking and Isaac Del Toro right onto his wheel as Primož Roglic now found himself in a group 40 seconds and going out further back down the road.
With only one professional win to his name in his long and glorious career, Carlos Verona, a winner at the Dauphiné 4 years ago, comes to Italy in triumph and takes the first big stage in the Alps. Carlos Verona blasted away early on that final climb and was never seen again.
The day after Giulio Ciccone had to abandon the race, up stepped Carlos Verona and took a win. Filippo Fiorelli out-sprinting everybody in the group of favourites, finishing as one, except for Primož Roglic, who lost a great deal more time on a damaging day for his GC race, stage 15. Verona there with his family on hand, making his way to the podium for the greatest win of the 32-year-old's career. A domestique, year in, year out, riding for Lidl Trek though. The first win for Verona for his new team, and one that he will never forget. By 22 seconds ahead of Florian Stork in second place. Isaac Del Toro, once again, fully in command and in control of the Giro d'Italia, 15 stages in. Primož Roglic dropping down to 10th place. And the Maglia Ciclamino, the teammate of Carlos Verona, extending his lead once again in the points overall standings. An excellent day for Lorenzo Fortunato in the King of the Mountains competition. He picked up a further 40 points and has a gigantic lead over Juan Ayuso now. And of course, Isaac Del Toro, another day in white, with an unchanged advantage over his nearest rival and teammate, Juan Ayuso.